Hey Tubesters, so today, in today, we are going to be talking about, oh, I'm a little windy, because I almost ran. It was kind of like in between a jog and a ran on the stairs. So, I realized that I needed my book that had all the specifics of what I'm talking about now in it. So, I'm so glad that the narrator's not going on with that. That was so annoying. So in today's video, we're going to be, I don't need this actually. That's the Sigil, I've already used that. Sorry. So right now we're going to be talking about the different connectors and chi points in which you connect the mind portion of the major sigil to the, well, I guess it's not different chi points because there's only one it's called the chi point itself. But you would use the connectors to connect the intent, chi points, and soul together, and they would make up the totality of the major sigil. Alright. The end. Okay, so this is going to probably be a little confusing. This might be the longest of all the videos. Alright. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types. 5. Well, I forgot what 5 was in French, so we're just going to deal with those two. That's the only ways I know how to say 5. There are 5 different types of connectors. You have the root, which is, this is where the chi is absorbed and or released into, okay, hold on, let me read it instead of altogether. This is where the chi is absorbed into the sigil or chi point, and or this is the chi, or this is where the chi is absorbed from the sigil or chi point, and or this is where chi is released into the sigil or chi point, and or this is where chi is released from the sigil or chi point. So I'm going to read that together as it would be. I just thought it would be a little easier to read it in separate sentences. So altogether it would be, this is where chi is absorbed and or released into or from the sigil or chi point. So some people might understand that in a few ways. And there's really no other way to explain that, so hopefully y'all understood it. So basically, I'm going to see if I can try and break it down a little easier. So chi is energy, right? So this, let me draw it. Right. So, this is the root. Alright. So that's what the root connector looks like, okay? And it doesn't have to be a downward, it can be upward. Well, that's a little curved, but you know what I mean. It can be upward, diagonal, whatever. That's just what it looks like. It's that perpendicular line where a vertical is meeting horizontal. So basically, the horizontal line is either releasing or absorbing chi. Okay? And that is coming, where'd it go? And that's either going into the major sigil, or it's coming out of the major sigil, or if there's a chi point, which is a small circle, then it's absorbing or releasing chi from that point. Okay? The next one is the amplifier. So, we're going to draw it on this side. Alright, that's a little big, but it's okay. Alright, the amplifier looks like this. It could also look like this, or this, or this, or this. You get the idea. It's a longer line over a shorter line with a perpendicular or a vertical line in between them. or crossing through them. Alright, so this is obviously an amplification of either the amount of chi or the intent. Hold on. So it represents an amplification of chi. Okay, so it's an amplification of chi or amplification of intent if used at the end of a path line. Oh, pardon me. Sorry, these notes are a little messy. Okay, so it's an amplification of chi or intent, or if it's used at the end of a path line, then it represents an even distribution of chi. I don't think I've ever really used it as the even distribution. This is my notes from someone on Tumblr. I don't necessarily do this all the same way. Like, I don't think I've really used it as an even distribution thing. I kind of use it as the amplifier. So we're going to disregard that last sentence. So basically it amplifies the intent. So if it's connected to the intent, then it's going to amplify that intention. Or if it's, well, we're going to have to draw another one. Alright, so if it's on a chi point, then it amplifies that chi from the chi point. Okay. Then we have the resistor. Alright, so this reduces the flow of chi within the major sigil. This can be fixed, only changes slightly, or only certain parts of the sigil, and variable. Alright, hold on. This reduces the flow of chi within the sigil. This can be fixed and variable. Both only affect the chi, not the intent. Okay, so this is a connector that is always with a chi point. So it can be above it or below it, but it's never going to be connected to a soul or a soul or an intent. So not the triangle, all right, not the triangle and not the big circle. All right, so yes to little circle, which is a chi point. Well, that's supposed to be a check mark that looks more like a V. So yes to the chi point, no to the intent or the mind, which is the triangle, and no to the soul, which is the big circle. Okay. So like the amplifier amplifies or magnifies what it's taking in, right? Yeah, what it's taking in. This one reduces it. So if you want it to be, alright, sorry about that. Someone walked in and was getting treats and all that, and I didn't want them getting curious and nosy and, well, distracting me. So, I think what I was leaving off was the resistor, and it's also seen as or referred to as a chi reducer. So this will always be connected to a chi point, and it reduces the flow of chi that comes from that point. Let's see if it has, this reduces the flow of chi within the sigil. Okay, so this can be fixed, where it only changes slightly, or only certain parts of or only changes certain parts of the sigil, or it can be variable, which in that effect it can affect the whole sigil. Both only affect the chi, not the intent. Okay, so I don't think I've ever used a resistor. Basically would be, I could think of maybe you want to have a slow diffusing type of manifestation. I'm not really sure exactly. Like I said, I haven't used it. I'm still really, well, I won't say I'm new, but when it comes to this part, I haven't done it as much as I have Sigil Craft, so. But I do really like this system. I like how much intent it puts into it, and how like you always have to think about every component of the major sigil, because it really helps to manifest the whole thing. Alright, so the next one we're going to go into is talking about the signal. This kind of looks almost like a plus sign. This is also referred to as a broadcaster. This is a point where both the intent and chi are released continually and totally, signaling a direction and strength. Alright. Direction is determined by the placement of the sigil, whereas the strength is assigned. This is used when creating sigil chains. Alright, now I don't actually do sigil chains. That was something that the person talked about, where they would like almost make sigils be like words and then sentences and all that. I don't do that. Alright, so basically this would mean that the way I use this, when it says that, where does it say? So the direction is determined by placement on the sigil. So if I'm having it placed in the, it's kind of like symbolic compass placement. So I'm having it placed upwards or in the north portion, then that could correspond to either, it could depend on how you want to read it. You could have it, pardon me, correspond to like the north, or like physicality. Pardon me. If it's in the south, then that could be or bottom, then it could be the south, or what's the word? I guess you could say spirituality. And then if it's right, then it would be east and or mental. Left would be west or emotional. So hey Tubesters, so this is kind of featuring me wanting to clarify what I just said, because I feel like I didn't explain that right and I messed up on a couple of things. So when it comes to the placement of that connector, you can, I do it in symbolic placement of kind of like the compass points, or in 4 directions. So you have the top, the bottom, the left. I know it's going to look like the right on your side, but just understand that I'm saying left, and on the right. Now there's 2 ways you can go about this. You can go about it in accordance to the compass directions and the elements, or you can go about it in the way that I usually do it. So the top would be the north and the element of earth and all that that represents. The bottom would be south, fire, and all that represents. The left would be the west and water and all that represents. The right would be east, air, and all that represents. Okay? Now, the way that I do it is the top is all about, I guess you could say like the non-physical or even spiritual things that I want to manifest. The bottom would be physical things. The left would be emotional things, pardon me, and then the right would be mental things. So that's how I do it. Yeah, so that was just kind of me wanting to come on here and clarify that real quick. So enjoy the rest of the video. Bye. And then this, as it says, the strength is kind of determined, or its strength is kind of intended into it. So you're always putting intention as you're drawing the sigil. And that's kind of how it's determined in this case when it comes to strength. The next one would be the antenna. So this almost looks like, it's similar to the root, but on a side. This is also called the vortex. So this absorbs all ambient chi. Now ambient is talking about local chi, so any of the chi that's residing around the sigil or the juju, it just absorbs that. Think of it as like extra, any extra chi. Alright, when absorbed, it is raw until combined with the intent. Alright? So, this, I always would draw these from the intent, which is the triangle, so that way it goes, that ambient chi goes straight into the intention point. And then it just kind of it's almost like extra fuel. Think of this almost in a similar way to like how some people address their anger. Instead of like banishing it or doing something to diffuse it, they'll put it in something as just like raw chi, or find some way of like construct. I know that Killian Maddox has talked about this before, I just don't remember exactly what she said, but think of it along those lines. So this is taking anything that's residing on the outskirts, and it's going to transmute it into the intention, okay? And that's pretty much the extent of the connectors. So now we're gonna, I'm gonna take a few months to think of how I want to, what type of connectors I want in here, and what chi I want, and maybe even what shape I'm going for. And then when I come back, I'm going to show you what I have. All right, tubesters. So this is what the connectors and chi points look like. All right. So we have the, hold on, the intent here with the minor sigil, okay, and then we have the antenna that will take in that ambient chi, send it to the intent to transmute it into beneficial chi that will work with the intention of the whole sigil and essentially the Juju. Then we come to the first connector, which is an amplification. So we're amplifying that intent, then we're putting this into a chi point, so that way it can condense, and then it's getting sent into the soul, okay? We also have, okay, and so that's all going to the soul, which will further help the intention, and we will talk about the soul in the next video, actually. So this will make a little more sense. We might change it up a little bit, we'll see. But then we also have, poop, I just forgot what it's called. Okay, the roots that are coming out here. Now remember, the root connector always goes to a chi point, okay? Remember from that paper that I have seemed to misplaced? Here it is. The root, remember how it always is connected to a chi point? So we have that coming out of the soul, okay, which is this big circle. Then it's getting, so it's the same intention and power that's getting put in here, amplified with the soul, which is another type of intention in here. And then that's getting diffused, and we're doing it kind of like a crossroad, because this is a searching type of, or soon to be Juju. So we have that dispersing in 3 different directions, and then getting chi, then amplified, then to another chi one, and then this is the signal connector. Again, we have that, those are for the releasing of the intentions to go out there, okay? And I've roped up on it a little bit. So that's pretty much the extent now. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video. We're going to be talking about the soul and how that aids in this major signal. So thank y'all so much for it. Oh, as always, you can comment below. All my platforms in the description. Plus, I have a second number, so you can text me or call me on there if you have any questions or just, you know, need someone to chat. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, abundant and eternal blessing. Mwah.